Mel, it's great to have you with me today. We were connected with another individual I had that was on the podcast, which has not yet been released. So yeah, it's coming. Trust me, I know it's coming. She's got me holding it back for a little bit. But anyways, you and I had a short conversation, so we found that this would probably be a good fit for both of us. And I just want to start off with you just telling everybody who you are, what you're doing, and then we could dive into like how you got to how you got to where you are today doing what you're doing.
Awesome. Well, John, thanks so much for having me. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here with you. So I appreciate the opportunity to be able to share my message with people because that's the whole point of going through the experiences. If you can't share it with people, then you can't support them in their transformation. So having the opportunity to share my message is amazing. So super appreciate you and honor to be here. I'm known as the clutter expert. So ultimately, what I do in a nutshell is I help people clear the clutter in every area of their life so that they can thrive because it's our birthright to thrive in every area of our lives. And when we're not, that just means there's something in the way. And I call that clutter.
So what got you? So I mean, you're decluttering what exactly? You're saying everything in life. So what is it exactly?
So, when people hear the word clutter, the first thing they think of is the stuff accumulating, like piles of unopened mail or a garage you can't park your car in, things like that. But what people don't realize is that that's just a symptom. It's an external manifestation of an internal condition, and there's many different manifestations the one internal condition takes, and that can be physical clutter in your environment. It can be being overweight, carrying extra weight on the body. It can be I'm too busy, I don't have enough time, or it shows up as different addictions, whether it be to hardcore drugs and alcohol or simply scrolling on social media all day because you're avoiding being present with yourself, to being in the debt cycle, getting into debt, out of debt, into debt, or in relationship with someone who's unhealthy. You might have a toxic relationship and you get out of that relationship, but you don't do the inner work. So you start a new relationship, but it's really the same relationship, just a different face. So ultimately, what I teach my clients when they get to the root of the clutter, when they come into me for clutter, when they get to the root of the clutter and they clear the root, not only does the clutter clear in their lives, but every area of their lives starts to get better because the root, which is really what I call inner clutter, and it's unprocessed emotions from traumatic events and losses we experience from being human. And if you're human, you have some of this stuff. It's just inevitable, and then all the limiting beliefs in the programming that we adopt and accumulate going through life, because from 0 to 8, we don't have a filter. So everything that we're told, we believe to be true. So money doesn't grow on trees, children should be seen and not heard, or whatever the beliefs, rich people are assholes, or, you can't have a lot of money without being a jerk, or whatever the things we hear, we believe it to be true. And we also, when events happen to us, we have an experience, and then we have emotions from that experience. And from those emotions, we make up a meaning about ourselves, and that meaning we carry forward. So, for instance, something as benign as your mom accidentally like being late picking you up a few times at school or something, you could then have an emotional response that then you make up the meaning that I'm not important, I don't matter. And so then you carry that throughout your life. And so that's what I call the inner clutter. And because we're human, we can't see ourselves. We need a mirror reflection. And so, just like there's the law of gravity in operation in the universe, there's multiple laws in operation. And one of them is the principle of correspondence, as above, so below, or as within, so without. And so, what that means is you're outside, whatever's coming to you outside, whether it's clutter, weight, people not treating you the way that you want to be treated, it's a mirror reflection of what's going on inside of you. And so when you get to the root and you release the unprocessed emotions and you break through and shift the limiting beliefs and stories, every area of your life gets better.
And so what got you started with this? Did you have something in your past that got you to, yeah, go through your clutter?
Yes. Yes. I did not get the name the clutter expert by accident. I was the cluttered mess. I'll keep it super brief. I mean, I was a cluttered mess. You couldn't walk in my room. My mom would get pissed off enough every once in a while that she would clean it, but inevitably the clutter would come right back. It would go right back to a chaotic mess. And for those of you out there that have clutter, I'm sure you can identify. You go organize your closet or you clear a surface, and next thing you know, within days, weeks, a month, it's all coming back, right? And what I didn't realize then was that the outside is only a mirror. And at that point in my life, early on, I had already experienced a lot of traumatic events and a lot of loss. So my parents, they divorced when I was 4. And I was already told when I was a kid that I was an accident. I was a hole in the condom. So I made up the story that, like, there's something wrong with me. I'm a problem and I cause problems. So I took on the blame that I was the cause of my parents' divorce. Because if I wasn't here, if I wasn't the accident, maybe they'd still be together. I also experienced a lot of sexual abuse at 8 years old. I had a lot of sexual abuse happen. And then at the age of 15, I lost my older brother to suicide. And so by the age of 15, like, I already had so much stuff going on. Like, I didn't even want to be in a body on the planet anymore. Like, I already wanted to die. And then having my brother commit suicide, like, I was pretty much on the trajectory to do the same thing that he did. And my school stepped in that I was in, and they're like, yeah, I think you need to get some professional help, and you can't come back until you get intensive therapy. And for a 15-year-old, what that looked like for me was I basically got shipped off to live in a residential treatment center for adolescents for the next year and a half of my life. And while I was living there, I was introduced to yoga and mindfulness. Now, let me just back up for a second and say I had no desire to get organized. I didn't give a rat's ass about my room getting clean. Pardon my French on your show. But I didn't care about my room getting clean. I didn't even want to be here. So for me to be like, oh, I should really do something about my room, that was not on my radar. And so this is why I'm so passionate about what I teach is as a result of being willing to look, which I call mindfulness is the willingness to look at your own experience by being willing to look at that inner clutter, at the unprocessed emotions, at the limiting beliefs, and start to release them without planning, without any effort, without trying. I found myself spontaneously and effortlessly creating order in my life, in my room. My room went from a chaotic mess to everything had a place and everything was in its place. And I basically did a 180-degree spin from being that chaotic mess to someone who loves creating order out of chaos. And then all of my jobs for the rest of my life basically required me to be a really organized person. Now, did I put the two and two together then that, oh, I'm going to like do this for a living? No. I mean, it took following the breadcrumbs in a very windy path till it was like what, 2006 to 2013 or 1996 to 2013 before I got the idea to even launch an organizing business. But it all came from my own experience of figuring out how it happens from the inside out and how it can be a lasting change, not just putting a band-aid on the problem.
Yeah. When you went home after what, a year and a half, you were at that school. When you went home, was it easy to carry what you learned into the household then? Or, I mean, did you have some kind of pushback or whatever, you know what I mean? Because usually, like, you know, for instance, if we go to a course or something, right, you go back home, you know, usually people just put it on the shelf and they don't touch it anymore. So I'm just kind of seeing what your thoughts are on that.
So fortunately for me, my parents were involved in all of the family therapy. So it wasn't like I was going through a course by myself and learning all these things and my family wasn't coming along with. So fortunately, my family was getting the support as well and was aware of all the shifts and changes. But I also didn't plan to get organized. And it happened gradually. It wasn't like all of a sudden I was like, I just did my entire room in one day. I just started to slowly and gradually, spontaneously go through things. In about a year's time after getting out of there, the complete shift had happened to where everything was in its place and everything had to have a place. But what I will say is that the attachments to things, like it wasn't like all of a sudden I wasn't attached to stuff anymore. So like I had things that I was super attached to that I wasn't ready to let go of yet, but everything was organized. And gradually over years and years of looking at things over and over again, I would let go of the things that I was super attached to. But even to this day, we all have things that we're attached to that we're not ready to let go of. I mean, I recently just let go of a tent that was brand new that I'd been hanging on just in case I go camping someday that I'd been carrying around since like 2006. You know what I mean? It was like, okay, now I'm ready to let it go. So we all have our things and we don't let go of everything all at once. And we will always have attachments to stuff.
Yeah, that's true. Did your parents like kind of push you to like clean your room up too, and you just like, forget it, you know?
When I was younger, absolutely. I would never, like when my mom got pissed and wanted me to clean my room, my idea of doing it is I'd shove everything under the bed, everything in the closet, and like everything into the drawers. And more than one junk drawer. Like I would just shove it everywhere. I didn't care because I was a mess on the inside.
Hmm, interesting. Yeah. But was okay, so you got back home. Was that like the first thing? I mean, besides cleaning your room, was there anything else that started to take place that you changed?
Um, God, you want me to remember that far back? Wow, that was like a long time ago. Um, so for me, like I really started to do the inner work, which I mean, it's a lifelong journey and transformation isn't linear. So I took the tools of what I learned and I went from being a cluttered mess to getting organized. But then I also stopped using those tools for a really long time. And then instead of having the manifestation of physical clutter, I was having the manifestation of drug addiction. I was addicted to crack cocaine. I was on the streets homeless and addicted to crystal meth in my 20s. And then I got into the unhealthy relationship for 12 years and allowed myself to be a doormat and did the debt cycle, like wound up becoming overweight. I used to be almost 170 pounds with high cholesterol and, a high percentage of body fat and all of those things. When I finally started recommitting to what I learned when I was in that center, and I really recommit to my life back in 2013 and really started putting the practices into place, and then every area of my life started getting better. Like I manifested a $50,000 check, in which is where I got the idea to launch my business. I got out of the unhealthy relationship. I released the weight. I got into the best shape of my life and became a best-selling author. My business is like taken off, and every area of my life keeps getting better and better. So transformation isn't linear. That's what I'll say. So definitely it
Right.
was like, and they also say that, when you're basically being in a residential treatment center is an institution. And so you become institutionalized when you live in an institution. And so when you get out, the tendency is to always regress back to where you were before you went in. So yes, I cleared the clutter, but then I had all these other challenges along the way. But while those challenges were happening, there was still this fire and this light inside that knowing that all of the shit that I had gone through in my life was somehow going to benefit others. I just didn't know what it was going to look like. So then while all this other stuff is going on in the background, I'm also thinking, okay, I want to be an energy healer. So I'm taking energy healing training. And then, oh, maybe I'm going to be a yoga teacher. So I'm going to yoga teacher training. And then, oh, maybe I'm going to be a martial arts instructor. So I studied martial arts and all the things till then in 2013, I got the idea to launch an organizing business.
Yeah, so it takes time. You try to figure out what you were interested in, passionate about, and you found that. Um, going. So, I mean, you went through a lot of stuff right there. You went from 15 and then now you're up to almost where you are today and just through a lot more stuff. Was there something that triggered you to say, hey, you know what? I had enough of being overweight, I had enough drugs. You know what I mean? Was there just like one point in time where you just said, I'm done, let's jump in and clean this up?
Yeah, so there was definitely a turning point, and again, transformation isn't linear, so it didn't always stay. But there was a point in my marriage where I was so tapped out and depleted, like I wasn't taking any time for myself. I was in a relationship with my ex-wife who really struggled with anxiety and depression and didn't want to leave the house and needed like constant emotional care. And I was in a place where I didn't value myself, so I didn't take care of myself, and I just kept giving and giving and giving. And I worked at a job that I loved, but I worked for someone who was just very oppressive and very like angry, and he would scream and yell, and it was a very toxic environment. And so I wound up getting to the point where like I was so depleted and I was so tapped out that I one day I remember just being like, okay, I am going to just end my life right now and be done with it and come back in another body and start all over again. Or I'm going to do whatever it takes to experience my birthright, which I know is to thrive in every area of my life. And so I made the decision in that moment that I was going to recommit to what I learned when I was in that treatment center. And I simply started taking 5 minutes a day for myself to become what I call willing to look at the inner clutter. And as a result, in my marriage, I was still using drugs and things like that. And that didn't stop right away. Um, but as a result, I started putting me first, and then all these things happened. It still took like 6 years before I was able to unenmesh myself from my toxic relationship and all the things. But it was in that moment in 2013 of where I was ready to commit suicide again. Like I was contemplating ending my life, that I finally made the decision that my happiness gets to be the most important thing. And if I don't put myself first, I'm not going to make it. And so it's been a very slow, gradual process, but that was the moment.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Um,
Yeah.
and I know it's hard for people to step out of their comfort zone too and try to do something that's risky, but could be so much better for them. And your story just says exactly that. So you actually just did that, and got you to where you are today. Um, I know, we're watching time here, but how can people reach out to you to connect with you, to learn what you're doing? And I don't know if you have some kind of like a free 15 or 30-minute call or something like that that you can share with everybody.
Yeah, I actually do one better. So I wrote a
Okay.
book called Freedom from Clutter, a guaranteed foolproof step-by-step process to remove the stuff that's weighing you down. And the funny thing is I never wanted to write the book, because I don't want to give people clutter. So I never wrote the book to become a best-selling author. I so I had a coach tell me I needed to have a book in order to get booked on podcasts and get speaking gigs. So I'm like, fine, I'll write the book, but I'm going to give it away for free. I don't want people to buy it. I don't care. I don't want it collecting dust on your shelf. So I give you the entire book for free. It's not a little PDF like thing with just a couple chapters. I wrote an entire book, and you can have the whole thing for free by going to freegiftfrommel.com. And
Okay.
that puts you, what?
And then after that, I mean, does that have information to connect with you if needed
Yeah, so
or
here's the thing. When you go to freegiftfrommel.com, you're going to give me your name and email address. That's going to put you into my community. And like today, I just taught a workshop on the 3 steps to manage, overwhelm, and organize any space. So I'm constantly teaching free workshops to my community. And any email that you receive to me, you can respond to it, and I will respond to you directly. It comes directly to me. I answer all my emails. So I'm constantly teaching free workshops. You can find me on social media, Mel Mason, the Clutter Expert, on Facebook, on Instagram. I have a YouTube channel, so you can find me on all the platforms,
is there like an
except
age
for TikTok.
You're not
I'm not a
dancing on
TikTok.
that one,
I'm not
huh?
dancing on TikTok. But never say never. I said I would never
Yeah,
run
you
either,
might.
and
Yeah,
now
it's an
never say
opportunity.
never.
Yeah, it's a risk. Yeah. Um, is there like an age limit or any kind of restrictions that you have or no?
No, no, no,
Okay.
no. Whenever
All
you're
right.
ready, whatever it is. What's interesting is usually the people that are ready, or most people are seniors. You know, they're seniors and they're ready to. They really want to, thrive in their last phase of life, and they don't want to be weighed down by all the stuff. I mean, I have some clients that have been accumulating stuff for 70 plus years. I mean, I have clients who are like, I'm younger than their youngest kid.
Yeah. Okay.
And then I have younger clients. So, and I've supported people in, you know, breaking 6 figures in their business, to going through breast cancer, to delivering twins, to, you know, the clutter. So, like, it's about thriving in every area of your life.
Thank you. So you had a lot of stuff in your journey there, and I know you just scraped the surface. It sounds like, but going through your journey, what are 3 key things you learned and used along it?
Yeah. So, I think the biggest thing is the willingness to look. Like, being willing to be present with yourself and giving yourself the gift of intimacy with yourself, because the outside is only a mirror of the inside. And so if you're like, you don't spend enough time with me, you don't make me feel special, you don't make me feel important. But what that's really saying is you don't make enough time for yourself. You don't value yourself, because when you value you and you make space for yourself, the outside is going to match and you're going to attract people that reflect that to you. Um, and when it comes to addressing the physical clutter, because I'm sure your listeners are like, well, I want some tips. Like, I want to know how to like tackle this or that. I feel overwhelmed. I don't know where to start. So I'll give you two tips that will support. Number one, start small. Don't do the whole closet. Don't do the whole garage. Start with a square foot at a time. Like, just start with a little square foot, make your decisions, put the things away that you're keeping, donate the stuff that you're donating, and incrementally create 1 square foot of clear space and close those loops and get those mini wins. Celebrate all the movement up the field, right? So get the win, get the dopamine hit, makes you want to keep going. And then for those of you out there that are like, oh, I can't let go, I can't make up my mind, I can't make decisions. Here's the thing. It's been accumulating for however many years it's been accumulating for. It's not going away overnight. You're not going to make decisions about everything all at once. So I have a 5-second decision making process. If you're looking at the item for more than 5 seconds, you're keeping it for now. Move on. Don't let it bottleneck you. Like, you're looking at something, you can't make up your mind, Aunt Maureen gave it to you and you don't want to let her down, or whatever, you're afraid she's going to be coming looking for it at your house, or whatever the story is. If it's been more than 5 seconds, just put it aside. You're keeping it for now. Move on to the next item. Let go of what's easy, celebrate what you do let go of, and don't worry about what you're keeping, because it's been accumulating for years. You want to start building that letting go muscle, that decision-making muscle, little by little by little. So get the little wins. If you're looking at it for more than 5 seconds, you're just keeping it for now. Move on. No judgment. Don't beat yourself up, and celebrate your wins.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you coming on, sharing all your sharing your story. You had a lot to share. So maybe I'll have to reach out to you again later.
Most definitely. Most
Yeah,
definitely.
cool. Well, thank you. Thanks for coming
Yeah,
on.
my pleasure. It's been an honor and a pleasure. I love always getting the opportunity to share, and thanks for providing the platform. And
Sure.
what I'll leave your audience with is that, really the only requirement to get free from any of the manifestations of clutter in your life is your presence. Your presence is required. That's it. It's the willingness to look.
Great. And that's another thing we could dive in.
Oh, yes. Yes. We got
Yes.
lots of episodes we could talk about.
That's right. All right. Thank you.
My pleasure, John. Thanks so much for having me.
You're
And you
welcome.
don't have to hold this episode. You can release it whenever. Just let me know.
All right.